A quote attributed to Albert Einstein says, "We can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used to create them." And yet, in my experience and observations with clients, this is our natural tendency. We find a problem and we believe through and through that if we just stare down this problem and think about it hard enough, we'll find the solution. What I'll share more about today is how that means of thinking just creates more of the problem and doesn't get us to the solution, the fulfillment, the life satisfaction, the happiness, the contentment, the freedom that so many of us are craving. After learning about this perspective, you will understand why you're feeling so stuck, potentially wasting money and time and energy, hindering your ability to thrive. You will also learn a new approach to get into the solution headspace that feels better and that creates the solutions that we crave. And I'm breaking all of it down into a really tangible practice that you can apply immediately after watching today's video. So today's story is broken down into 3 parts. The first is the mindset piece, understanding why we get so focused on the one problem and think if I just resolve this one thing, life will be better. Part 2 is the logistical know-how, the wheel that you saw in the thumbnail, the solution and new perspective to get you into a headspace where you will find the answers and the outcomes that you're craving. And part 3, the clearly outlined practice for you to apply all of this immediately and experience life-changing outcomes like some of my clients just shared last week, getting a raise, receiving help and support that made their life infinitely easier, recognizing how to prioritize themselves and how empowering this way of living is, and so much more. Stay till the end for a life-changing free resource and enjoy another Yes and by Marin video. So this first part, mindset. I shared that quote attributed to Albert Einstein, and there are so many others who talk about this. One of my favorites is Abraham Hicks. My group coaching members know that I talk about her a lot because she has such a great, refreshing approach to this mindset piece and how we so often keep ourselves stuck by looking at an aspect that isn't helpful to our solution. What's incredible is our minds are expert problem solvers. So when we ask a question, our brain automatically starts coming up with an answer. The trick is what question are we asking our brain? And sometimes this isn't even in the form of a question, it's just a train of thought, a momentum of thinking that can be helpful or keep us stuck. If you think a thought enough times, that becomes your belief. And you heard in my video last week that beliefs directly create our reality because they impact our behaviors along the way. So if I am telling my brain, if I am telling myself, I don't like this job, I don't like this job, my brain computes that as a problem to continue solving or an equation to continue answering. In this sense, I don't like my job, let's look for all the reasons I don't like my job. Likewise, if we continue to repeat to ourselves or feel the feelings of, I don't know where I'm going, I am so lost, I am so frustrated, our brain completes that equation by looking around for all the reasons we are frustrated, for all the reasons we are lost, we are scattered, we don't know what we're doing next. Same with emotions like regret. If we continue telling our brains, gosh, I so wish I chose a different path, I really regret that decision, our brains continue to problem solve and answer the question about why we regret this thing, why we should have chosen another path. Your mind is simply doing its job. It's hearing the input, it's solving a problem, it's finishing the equation and gathering all the data to make that input make sense. And just like a flywheel, this is where our attention goes, where our attention stays, and where our attention grows. Also growing our behaviors and our feelings and our emotions, which even propels that flywheel quicker and bigger. And what's at stake is more than our attention and our time spent and how we feel day to day. Because when we focus on the problem and truly believe that if we just were to solve this time predicament or whatever it is for you, we would do anything to make that happen. So we pay thousands of dollars to get more courses, to get support in that one area. We hire the expert, we take years of our life to get that one degree or that one certification because we fully believe that by solving that one thing, everything else will be better. With that equation, it's worth it. It's worth the thousands of dollars. It's worth the time spent. And that's when we get ourselves into a pickle, because years later, or thousands of dollars later, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars later, we're on the other side and realize even if that one thing that we were so focused on gets resolved, there are still elements of our life, or we still feel to a certain extent deprived of the fulfillment, the satisfaction, and the freedom that we've been craving and we thought was all pinned on this one thing. I am just as guilty as anyone else. In fact, I just got off a phone call with someone because I was thinking for a time, maybe I'd become a certified financial planner, and that would help me have even better conversations with my clients when money roadblocks come up. Little did I realize I was pinning everything on this one degree, this one certification, and I'm so grateful I took a step back and I had some conversations and I thought through exactly what I'm sharing with you today. Is this really the thing? Is this really the one solution that transforms everything? Almost always, there are a million other alternatives and pathways to get to that solution. So let's grab a new perspective to keep in our back pocket to remind us just how many pathways there are for us to choose from. And keep that reality check that just this one thing, most likely, is not the solution to all of our problems and all of our desires. There's a much bigger picture at play. So behind me is the bigger picture, or one representation of it. This is referred to as the wellness wheel. And even this one tool, the wellness wheel, can be created in so many different ways. So I pulled a few examples, I'll pop them on the screen now, of different variations of the wellness wheel, and you can find the variation that feels best for you just by Google image searching the wellness wheel. Sometimes this is divided into 6 categories, 7, sometimes 8. So choose the one that feels like it creates your holistic picture. That's the point of this representation, is to remind ourselves that there's not just one aspect of our life, there are many. So the wellness wheel I have drawn today is divided into 7 different parts: environment, occupation, intellect, emotion, social, spiritual, and physical. Sometimes when I welcome new one-on-one clients into our practice, before we dive into an intense 6 months of work together, I have them write out this wellness wheel. Again, as one perspective to check in with how their life feels as a whole. And how we fill this out is by rating each area, each section of this pie, 1 to 10. Imagine 0 or 1 being in the center of the circle and 10 being on the outside. 10 means this area of your life is thriving and well. You couldn't imagine it any better. And 0 or 1 is when that area of life is struggling. And then there's anywhere in between. So here's what happens when a client has this tool accessible for them and how it helps us focus on the solution mindset far more effectively and efficiently. Chances are when a client comes to my door, especially if they're willing to invest the time and the money and the energy into this type of work, they have something that is on their heart, that is on their soul, that is on their vision board, and that was the ultimate catalyst, the ultimate reason for hiring a life coach. Without this wheel, they are often primed to bring that thing to the table. So as a few examples, a lot of clients come to me with career aspirations, whether that's starting their own business or making a career change or asking for a raise or to be in a new position in their work that gives them greater fulfillment and greater financial satisfaction. This may be their main goal by the end of our 6 months together. However, without this wheel, without this perspective of taking a step back and wondering what is all at play here, we could very easily get focused in on this problem and just circle and churn with the same things that have likely been spiraling in their mind forever. So what happens when we take a step back and we look at this wheel? One client I'm thinking of in particular had a wonderful, beautiful career and financial goal, and this was one of her main reasons for getting coaching support. However, we noticed time and time again in our sessions that relationships, and specifically her intimate relationship, came up really frequently. So frequently that I guided us to take a step back, to look at this wheel, to look at all the areas of her life, and share that yes, this relationship part of her life wasn't doing so well, and in fact maybe was even lower than the career and financial aspirations and desires that she had. On the flip side, I think of another client who also had career aspirations, and because of this was focused so intently that he didn't realize just how amazing his spiritual and relationship and physical environment was. So for the first example, once we zoomed out to the full wheel, to the full holistic picture, it prompted this release valve to finally be able to talk about what they wanted to talk about, at least what their inner self wanted to talk about all along. With the second client example, that zoom out really helped to propel momentum and perseverance and perspective that life wasn't falling apart. There were so many other areas of their life that were thriving and whole. Another way to consider this wheel, especially if you literally fill it out and you draw lines of the levels each of these areas are for you in your life at this time, is to imagine this wheel actually spinning, actually rolling down a hill or down the street. If all 7 or 8 of those areas are really full or at least similar amongst themselves, then that wheel will roll pretty easily. But if there's 1 or 2 areas that are really low or far different than the others, that's gonna be a super bumpy ride, which is really what we felt with client 1, when there was this bump that kept coming up again and again, and without shifting and permitting focus to go there as well, it was just gonna stay bumpy. So this is why I am so passionate, both with my one-on-one clients, like the examples I just gave, and in my group coaching program, to not focus in and believe that it's just this one area, this one focus that needs to be resolved, that has to be resolved, and then everything else will be good. But rather to consistently always keep this big picture, at least on our minds in some way. If we're so worried about that one section of the pie without realizing that the other 6 sections are holding us pretty darn well and letting that wheel spin pretty darn well, then we can get stuck in a belief pattern that recreates more and more challenge rather than seeing the good and the flow that is happening in our lives as a whole. And as a final personal example, I remember filling out this very wheel with one of my coaches right before I moved to California for grad school. And what stood out to me at that time, I can distinctly remember coloring in this section of the wheel, is that my highest point, my most satisfied piece of the pie, was my physical environment. At the time, I was living in the Twin Cities, Minnesota, and at the time I was packing my bags to move to California. So I was surprised and I took note of this because the one thing I was so satisfied with was the one thing I was changing. Now at the time, this still ultimately felt good because I was taking a step and going to a program I was really excited about on the whole. But without that piece of knowledge, without that awareness, taking a step back and taking note of my life as a whole, I know I wouldn't have felt so certain once I was done with grad school that I would move back to the Twin Cities. So you know I'm not gonna leave you just with a new perspective and a new philosophy for how to think about your life, but with a very actionable tool to apply this to your life right now. Step 1, find a wheel on Google Image that makes sense to you. Again, there are so many different wellness wheels. There are so many different ways of looking at your holistic life. Just trust the one that stands out to you. And then with that wheel, either write on your computer or print it off and fill it out yourself, draw it in a notebook, write down where you stand on each of these elements of your life. So yes, there may be that one aspect that feels low that you knew was low in terms of satisfaction and fulfillment. Maybe this idea of, I don't have enough time to do what I actually want to do, which is hindering my ability to feel satisfied at work and to create the business that would make me feel even more satisfied at work. So that's super low. Or maybe I don't have enough time for the people that I care about, for the values that I care about. So my physical or my relational pieces of the pie are low. And you already knew these aspects because you clicked on this video. A really practical way to approach this is to take note of the things that are low and then ask yourself, is there something I can do about this right now? Is there one step, one decision, one shift I could make that would help to increase this, if only by 1/2 of a point? If an answer comes to mind, absolutely write it down, take action, get support around you so that you can enact the solution that you already know. And if a solution doesn't come to mind immediately, and I mean immediately for this practice, set it aside. Your mind has already input that problem, has already input the data needed to know that this area of your life isn't feeling fulfilled. And just by focusing on this one tree in the entire forest is not going to help move you forward, get that momentum to a solution. There are various ways to set your mind at ease when setting aside a problem. Potentially knowing that you have this wheel is enough to know that you've already taken note of what is going on. Potentially you create a reminder or an event in your calendar to revisit this problem, maybe tomorrow, maybe in a month, maybe in a year. So you know that this is being taken care of at some point, or you will have the opportunity again to ask yourself, do I feel a solution? Do I know a solution at this time from a new perspective? Or another way that can often feel really freeing and empowering is to sign that off and assign this problem to something else. For some of you, that may be God. For some of you, that may be the universe. For some of you, that may be just a wish upon a star that somehow this will transform. Maybe you do a little bit of both. You allow yourself to come back to the problem at some point, to reevaluate, to reassess, to brainstorm again if maybe a solution has come up. And in the meantime, rid yourself of the weight that comes with having to decide or having to figure it out right now. Chances are you can't decide, you can't figure it out if you haven't done so already. So release it, let it go to something, to somewhere else for the time being until you do want to revisit it. So step 2 is to get into this solution mindset. Channel your inner Albert Einstein, your inner Abraham Hicks or Maren Lauka to take note, to take stock of the elements of your wheel that are really high. Taking note of and celebrating these is so important to maintain momentum, perseverance, to be in that solution headspace so that although you may not know the answer to that one piece of the pie that is feeling low, you do know the answer to so many things, and getting that sense of empowerment, that sense of confidence, that sense of assurance in yourself may help you, will definitely help you, to fill that other aspect of the pie that's feeling low. For inspiration, here are some of the celebrations that my clients in the group coaching program have shared in the past few weeks. One member courageously asked for a raise that she 1000% deserved. One member recognized that the inner critic, the inner dialogue that was so negative for so long, has since been tamed. And she has a healthy relationship with this and found this new part of herself that feels assured and confident and self-loving. Another member celebrated taking time for themselves. Someone else celebrated courageously asking for help and feeling the freedom and how much easier life can be when they receive that help without guilt, without shame. And that not only bettered their life, but they realized in putting themselves into that slightly uncomfortable position just because it was a new experience, it also bettered the lives of those around them. Another member is celebrating a career transition. And not only that she transitioned into something that she feels more aligned with, but also she is celebrating herself for being more compassionate in this transition than other transitions in the past. These celebrations, again, foster momentum. They help us to recognize when things are going right, the solutions that we've already created or we are already experiencing. So what is yours? What is your celebration? What is your win? What is going right? How do you feel confident or recognize an area of your life that has gone really well? Something you want to feel proud of yourself for. Even more than saying this to yourself, than acknowledging your own celebrations, it does wonders to share this in a group. So right now, comment below. What are you celebrating? What is going right? Where in your headspace do you feel so solution-minded? You feel so expansive or settled in this area of your life? Even better yet, get a taste of the experience that my group coaching clients receive every single week by joining my next free group coaching call. It is held just for you, a space that is truly safe and vulnerable and fun for you to explore these questions and to consider how you can make your life better with positive psychology and these coaching practices I share every week. You can sign up for this free group call below, and you have the opportunity to share your desires, your current challenges, and any questions you may have that you believe can be answered in this coaching space. I then, on the call, guide us through 3 different parts of the call that you bet is broken down into those 3 things. Our desires, which I also turn into our celebrations, and we start the call off with that so we can acknowledge this solution headspace that we spent the time today talking about. Then we go into our challenges and we brainstorm almost like a mastermind together, find new perspectives that were unavailable for you alone. And we end the free group call with questions related to any part of the conversation we had that day, questions to any of these videos or any activities that you have implemented in your life and want to take a step further. And yes, at the end of that group call, I also invite you and give you a little bonus gift if you do want to sign up for my group coaching program, because the type of transformations I shared with my client examples today, like getting a raise, changing careers into one that is more fulfilling for you, learning to trust yourself, talking to yourself in a more compassionate way, which makes you save energy and use that energy in your time in a way that feels fulfilling and amazing, rather than in that dark headspace that we've all been but don't want to stay. Those kind of results come when you show up for this type of work consistently. So start with the free group call. That is your next step. Again, sign up using the link below. I really look forward to seeing you there. And if you're ready to take action, if you're ready to really transform your life and see those tangible results for yourself, join the group coaching program right after that free group call, or if you're feeling zealous, there's a link below to join right now. Thanks for tuning in today. I look forward to celebrating your wins when you comment them below and seeing you on our next group coaching call.